You already know what to do, so why aren't you doing it? That's the frustrating part. You've thought about it, you researched it, you've watched videos about it, you've probably even imagined what your life could be like if you finally committed to it. And still, you haven't moved. Not fully, anyway. Maybe you keep telling yourself, I'll start next week once things calm down a little bit, once I feel more confident, or once I know a little more. But deep down, you already know. You know the habit you need to change. You know the conversation you need to have. You know the thing you've been avoiding. So the question becomes, if you already know what to do, why aren't you doing it? Because most people think the problem is information. Well, I'm here to tell you that it's not. We live in a world overflowing with information. You can learn almost anything for free nowadays. There are tutorials, podcasts, books, courses, mentors, AI tools now that help with all of that. And yet, people stay stuck for years. And why is that? It's because knowledge doesn't automatically create movement. Something else has to happen first. This is where most people get trapped, not in confusion, but in hesitation. Okay, listen to that. There's a difference. Confusion says, I don't know what to do, but hesitation says, I know, but I'm not moving. And hesitation's dangerous. It's dangerous because it looks harmless. Again, you start telling yourself things like you are thinking, you're preparing, you're waiting for the right time. But sometimes what looks like preparation is actually avoidance. I've lived it. So many of us have. You have to come to terms with it. It's avoidance. And almost everyone experiences this at some point. You get inspired, you feel motivated, you have a moment where things suddenly become so clear to you, and you think, okay, this is it. I'm finally going to change this. I'm finally going to start this. Maybe it's your health, maybe your finances, maybe it's career related, which is most of what I discuss here, career and business related. Maybe it's a business idea, maybe a creative project that you wanted to start. It could even be a life change you've been quietly thinking about for years. For a moment, you feel certain, and then you pause. Life gets busy. Doubt creeps in. Fear starts talking. Then you start overthinking. You delay, and later becomes someday. And someday becomes another week, another month, and another year. And what makes it worse is this: the longer you wait, the heavier the decision starts to feel. There is a heaviness because now it's not just about starting, now it's about all the time you lost not starting. That's why hesitation can quietly become a cycle. You hesitate, you feel frustrated with yourself. That frustration lowers your confidence. Then, lower confidence makes future action even harder. So instead of moving, you stay mentally stuck in the same place. Not because you're incapable, hear that, but because hesitation slowly trained you to stop trusting your own decision. You lose trust in yourself. So here's the truth: most people avoid. Okay. You're probably not stuck. You're resisting, not consciously, internally, because taking action is rarely just about the actual action itself. It's about what the action represents. Starting something new forces you into uncertainty, and uncertainty feels uncomfortable to the human brain. Your brain wants familiar things, wants familiarity, predictability, it wants safety. That's why sometimes it just causes you to avoid that uncertainty, that thing that doesn't feel safe. And even if your current situation frustrates you, at least it's familiar. That's why people stay in careers they hate, stay in routines that drain them, stay in patterns that no longer serve them, not because they actually enjoy it, but because it's known, it's common, it's familiar. And the unknown creates tension. The flip side, even positive change can feel threatening. Think about that. You can want something so deeply and still resist moving forward toward it because growth creates emotional friction. And most people mistake that friction for a sign to stop, but it isn't. It's actually a sign that you're approaching change. The problem is most people spend their entire lives trying to avoid discomfort. Think about that. So when discomfort shows up during growth, they assume they're doing something wrong. But discomfort is often part of that transformation. I learned from my mentor who told me, learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Confidence isn't built before action, it's built because of action. And clarity doesn't always arrive first either. Sometimes clarity shows up after the movement begins. People think successful people are fearless. They're not. They just learned how to move while uncertainty is still present. They're walking through it. If they're afraid, they're walking through it afraid and they continue through it. Let's really break this down. Because hesitation usually comes from a few hidden fears, things like fear of failure. What if I try and it doesn't work? That fear alone stops millions of people. Not because failure destroys people, but because people attach meaning to failure. They think failure means I'm not capable, I'm too late, I'm not good enough. But failure is often just feedback. Another fear is wasting time, especially in midlife. I'm turning 53 this year, and the last thing I want to do is waste time. Time's precious. But then you start thinking, I can't afford to make the wrong move. I already lost enough time. What if I start over and regret it? And that pressure can become paralyzing because now every decision feels permanent. Then there's fear of looking foolish. That's a big one. Fear of what other people think. What will they say? This one's bigger than most people admit. People worry, what will others think? What if people judge me? What if I fail publicly? What will my family say? What will my friends say? What will my community, in a sense, say about me? So they stay quiet, play it small, keep their ideas to themselves, not because they lack desire, but because they're thinking to protect themselves. It's that fight or flight thing that I'm talking about. They're trying to protect themselves from embarrassment. And then there's another fear that hits hard, fear of starting and not finishing. A lot of people carry guilt from unfinished attempts, projects that they abandoned, goals they never followed through on, plans they got excited about but then dropped. So now they hesitate to begin again because part of them is afraid of disappointing themselves one more time. But underneath all these fears, there's something even deeper happening. Identity. It's tied to identity. This part matters more than most people realize because real change often requires an identity shift. If you've spent years being the reliable employee, the responsible parent, the practical one, the person who plays it safe, the person who avoids risk, then stepping into something uncertain can feel unnatural. Even if you want it, even if you know it could improve your life, because your current identity has patterns attached to it, and those patterns become familiar. So when you try to act differently, your mind creates the resistance. Not because the goal is wrong, because the identity feels unfamiliar. For example, someone has spent years seeing themselves as not confident. Taking bold action feels totally fake at first. If someone has spent years believing I'm not entrepreneurial, I'm not creative, I'm not disciplined, then every action that challenges that identity creates internal conflict. I'm telling you, this is hitting me like gold right now because these are things that I've experienced year after year. I know for certain that I'm hitting the nail on the head right now with many of you. Every action that challenges that identity creates internal conflict. Now, that's why change can feel emotionally exhausting in the beginning. You're not just building new habits, you're building a new self image. That takes repetition. This is why waiting to feel like the new version of yourself doesn't work. Not here. The feeling usually comes after repeated action, not before. You become the person through the process. I always have this term that I use when I'm going through some difficulty. I tell myself, I'm becoming. I'm becoming. And that's what happens. You become that person through the process, not before it, okay? Through it. Once the process starts, change happens. So maybe then hesitation isn't proof that you should stop, correct? Maybe it's proof you're standing at the edge of something unfamiliar. And unfamiliar doesn't automatically mean wrong. It often means growth. The people who move forward in life are not the people who always feel ready. They're the people who stop treating uncertainty like danger. They move while they're still doubting. They move while they're still nervous. They move while they're still figuring things out because they understand something very important. Momentum creates clarity, not the other way around. And once you finally move, even in a small way, something shifts internally. You stop seeing yourself as someone who only thinks. You become someone who acts. There's actually evidence that's processing in your mind that you're taking action. You're not someone who just thinks about it, you're someone who takes action. And that matters more than perfection ever will. So instead of asking yourself, how do I feel completely ready. Ask this instead. What's one move I can make today? One move I can make today, even if I'm unsure. One email, one workout, one post, one application, one conversation, one small step. Please hear me. Not perfect, not complete, not dramatic. This isn't drama filled, just movement. Because that movement breaks the hesitation. That's what we're trying to do, is break that chain of hesitation, of feeling that way that holds you back. We want to break that. We want to move forward. We want to learn this way of becoming successful in the things we do, creating growth the right way, not walking in fear, walking through fear. Because the longer you stay in hesitation, the more we normalize it. That should be a scary thought. The more we hesitate, it becomes normal to us. That scares me. Something becomes normal to you, you're going to continue in that. You're not going to see it as the threat that it is, in a sense, something that you can overcome. You're just going to accept it. Eventually, you start convincing yourself, this is just who I am. Guess what? It isn't. No way. Hesitation is a pattern, and patterns can be broken. The moment you move, even slightly, you interrupt that pattern, that cycle. You rebuild trust in yourself. You rebuild trust in yourself. I used to be in building construction, and rebuilding something takes a lot of work. So don't expect this to be easy. When you're rebuilding trust in yourself, it's going to take effort, action. Okay? It's not going to be easy, but I guarantee you 100% it is possible if you allow it. You rebuild trust in yourself. That matters more than getting everything right immediately. Your future probably isn't waiting for you to feel ready. It's waiting for you to move, take action. So, if you still don't know what direction makes sense for your life right now, that's fine. But take the next step. If you want, you can start with my clarity guide, which you can access from the link in the caption, in the description. But if you already know what you need to do, stop consuming, stop researching, stop waiting for certainty. Pick one move and make it today. Because clarity without action changes absolutely nothing. And the life you want will never be built through hesitation. If you've been sitting there thinking about, okay, but why do I keep stopping every time I try? Well, that's a different topic. If you've been thinking that, why do I keep stopping every time I try? Then watch my previous video that is going to show at the top left side of the screen why you can't stay consistent. The real problem isn't discipline. Because consistency usually isn't a discipline problem, it's an internal resistance problem. Okay, and watch for next week's video, how to start, even if you feel late, behind, or not ready. That's a good one. And subscribe to continue support. Talk to you soon.